Please stand.
Good morning. Let's bow our heads, our hearts this morning. Father, today I want to thank you. I want to thank you that this assembly takes a few moments to recognize you. That we give you honor today. We give you praise from our hearts. We thank you and we invite you here today, Holy Spirit, to help us, to show us things, to tell us things, to give us wisdom and grace on what is spoken about today. Father, I bless these people and I speak over them your mercies, your grace, that you would even help them see you better on who you are, a God, a Savior that died for us to give us life and life in abundance. And I pray that and I ask it in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, if everybody could, looks like everybody's signed in and good.
Okay, I'll call the roll, please.
Well, you already did.
It is wrong.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's here.
Yes, I did. All are present. Thank you.
Communication and announcements. Any board members have anything they want to announce or communicate? Mr. Hastings.
Yep, I got a resolution here on our DEI stuff that I've been bringing up for the last 2 years. Where do I go with it? I've tried several locations to bring it forth, and I keep getting ignored. I'd like to see it on the next county board meeting, full board meeting.
I would think it would go through administration
Yeah, he
committee
doesn't-
first.
Yeah.
And you're not having any luck there?
No,
Okay.
no response, Dennis, whatsoever.
You never asked me.
I sent you an email.
Oh, you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you guys can get together after this and discuss it, or if you want me in part of that discussion, I'd
Perfect,
be
thank
willing
you.
to be part of it. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. Public comments. First up on the list is Joe Fox. Please state your name, where you reside. And you get 2 minutes if it's on the agenda, 3 minutes if it's on the agenda, 2 minutes if it's not.
Okay, I'll be quick. Joe Fox from Worcester. First, I would like to thank Sheriff Schmidt and the entire Price County Sheriff's Department for doing a great job investigating the inappropriate material that was displayed at the highway meeting. I would also like to set the record straight as far as the narrative coming from our county administrator. We were not hacked. No data breach. No one broke through any firewalls or security in the WebEx platform. That narrative was being pushed to cover up incompetence. The narrative is also being pushed that this call originated in Canada. That is not true, and anyone can purchase a 99-cent per month VPN, that's a virtual private network, knows that. This was done by someone in our immediate area. So what happened was our county administrator, who has been running online meeting for years, failed us again. The county administrator is so incompetent, he did not request or restrict access from anyone in the entire world
Mr. Chairman,
from
Yes, sir.
entering.
at this
Mr.
time,
Politic.
I'm going to take the floor.
You can't. This
I
is
am
my
so-
comment.
I am so tired.
You can't.
of-
This is my public comment. You cannot
Order,
interrupt
please,
me.
order. I'd like to hear what Mr. Polachek has to say. I'm not cutting you off completely yet, but I want to hear what Mr. Polachek has to say.
This is absurd. I chaired that meeting. Nick was as surprised as we are, and I'm one supervisor that's doggone tired of hearing our team members being picked on. How about the rest of you people here? I'd like to see a show of hands on this. I'm going to suggest that we take public comment off of our agendas, period.
Wow.
That's-
Another censorship campaign from
See
Park
a show
Fall.
of
Okay,
hands.
let's have order here. Oh, wait a minute. Come on, please.
How many,
Please. Enough.
Other
Let's
members are tired of
maintain
this.
decorum here.
Thank
I
you.
think we got your message. Joe, do you have anything, details or
Yes,
further?
I want to finish.
Okay, you got 20 seconds. I'm sorry. Yeah, 20 seconds.
Well, the county administrator is so incompetent, he did not request or restrict access from anyone in the entire world entering our online county board meetings and sharing content for all to see. I know many of you own your own businesses and would not put up with this incompetence from your employees. I would like to know how the county board of supervisors is going to hold our county administrator accountable for this failure. I
Okay.
will be following up. Thank you.
Time. Okay, next up is Tammy Hastings.
Tammy Hastings, Town of Eisenstein. There we go. I was actually not going to speak on that. And just to give a little bit more insight, I don't think that it's as much of an attack. What happened to me when I said that about Larry during a meeting, I had to look into the WebEx forum because WebEx was actually unmuted from this side. And when I contacted WebEx, they said that when you have it muted in your own vehicle, it can actually be unmuted on this side. So there are some things that probably should be looked into as far as securing that. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to thank the Health and Human Services Department for the wonderful presentation that they did regarding the Delta 8 and the conversations we've been having about that. And the only thing that I wanted to point out is I was very disappointed in Mr. Wortgo's statement that for the sake of a couple dozen kids that we wouldn't allow adults to have this. And it comes right down to probably a possibility to recuse yourself, which is why Larry's handling this, because you sit on the city board. And so there can be some manipulation there regarding the mayor as far as having this passed. But I would really plead with you guys to really think about the kids in this situation. And like we said, you can get free samples of this. We have a conflict with the mental health if we proceed to push this through, because they are going to be operating for the next few years on this new grant that is literally helping the schools keep these drugs off the streets and not get kids started. And that's really, I think, where our responsibility lies, not to help these mental health issues perpetuate a problem in our county. So I hope you guys all saw that meeting, and if you didn't, the health department did do an amazing job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
I don't
Kopish.
know what's with the clock, but both the speakers who
I
were not on the agenda got 3 minutes, so they didn't use it. But
Um,
just a comment.
well, I'm not gonna argue with you.
Yeah, well, they did.
I have a
See, it's
clock
still
right
a
here.
minute. Yeah, it's still a minute up there on the
Ms.
screen.
Hastings only used 1 minute and 40 seconds according to my clock.
Right, yeah, but we're using 3 minutes as the countdown, so that's what the speaker sees.
Oh.
That's
okay.
why I'm bringing it up.
Okay, I understand.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you.
Okay, going forward, I don't know what, I'll think about it and have some discussions as far as public comment. I don't think it should be eliminated personally, but I'm open to having a conversation. I'd just like to remind all board members that public comment, you don't have to, or you shouldn't respond to it, even though it might irritate you. You should just maintain decorum and be the bigger person. Thank you. Is there anybody online? *6 if you'd like to comment. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to presentations. Employee recognitions. Laura Palskill.
Good morning. We have 2 employees in the month of May who are celebrating milestone anniversaries with us. The first one that I have is Wendy Creeley, who is a deputy clerk of court. She has been in that role now for about a year, which actually that's kind of a second one for her. She had been with the county for about 10 years and then left for about 6 months, and now she's back and has been back with us for a year. So thank you to her and her service. And we also are celebrating TJ Padmalik, who will be celebrating 25 years as the IT director. Actually already did. May 8th was his 25th year with us. So let's give them a big round of applause for their service to the county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, Buck Tussle was supposed to be here and Nick has been trying to make contact with them. And do you have anything to share, Nick?
Yeah, they never got back to me. They said they were going to be here. I didn't get a text. I just texted him to see if he was going to be online or in person. I have not heard.
Okay, it's unfortunate. Optics aren't good, but the good thing is they haven't spent any money yet, so we're not on the hook for anything. Not that we're going to be. I shouldn't have said that because there's a lot of steps before we're on the hook. But anyway, they haven't spent any money that we bonded.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Is that bug tussle thing even a viable option now with Starlink merging with T-Mobile? I mean, that happened after the fact. This seems like the answer to all life's problems with the satellite internet at this point. So
Yeah.
if it was up to me, I'd revisit this contract with
Yeah, I don't know the details of how that would work, but that could very well
just
be.
a thought, I guess, at this
Yeah.
point.
Mr. Hallstrand.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe this bug tussle contract we signed is far more than just internet. It addresses our aging radio system. It brings cellular opportunities. So yes, the T-Mobile Starlink thing is a great option for people, but we're looking at a bigger picture than just internet.
I guess my comment would be, we need better communications with our Sheriff's
Absolutely.
Department and Health and Human Services.
I just got a text from Mitch. He'll be on in a couple minutes. So if we want to
really?
push this towards the end of the
Okay,
agenda.
we'll move that up then, or out. But yeah, because it's going to cost the county a fortune if we have to put our own towers up. Okay, next item, approval of the minutes, April 15th, 2025 meeting. Looking for a motion to approve. Motion by Kopish, second by Drobnik. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
The minutes passed.
We got, okay.
That's an oops. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's changed. The problem was for anybody online that Ms. Stephen might have hit the wrong button. She wanted to say yes, but she said no. But it's been changed, so it's unanimous.
The approval of the minutes passed. 13 yes, 0 no.
Okay, resolutions. Resolution authorizing participation in WDNR Trail Program. This came from the Forestry Department. You have it in your packet. It's basically allowing forestry to apply for grants. And Mr. Hallstrand, you want to expand on that, or pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, motion by Drobnik, second by Spacek.
This is a resolution that we passed in the years past. It just gives the forestry department, the head forester, I guess, Joe Grappa's position, the authority to go out and apply for grants that they don't have to come and ask us for each grant. When the approval comes, if it's a matching grant, they do need to get requests for that. But this is just something we pass every 5 years, I believe.
Last year, they received about $40,000 in grants via this. That's in the annual report.
Yes.
If you want to look at that.
Any further discussion? Okay, and the motion and second, we'll go ahead and vote.
Resolution 925, authorizing participation in WDNR Trail Program has passed. 13 yes, 0 no.
Okay, very good. Next resolution, confirming and ratifying the authority of council for Price County to add additional defendants to opioid litigation, including in MDL 2804. This came from executive. It has to do with the opiate class action. It's basically, it was, I don't know, I guess assume isn't the right word, but I'm going to say it anyway. Assume that that council could add defendants. This is just a resolution to eliminate any confusion going forward that they can add litigants. Motion by Polachek, second by Hallstrand. I'll read it, therefore be it resolved. The County Board of Supervisors hereby confirms and ratifies the authority of the law firms to file appropriate pleadings in MDL 2804 or appropriate federal or state court proceedings to add additional parties, including but not limited to the entities listed on Exhibit A as defendants. 2, the Corporation Council Board Chair or other authorized official to execute and deliver any and all other and further documents necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution. Be it further resolved that all actions heretofore taken by the Board of Supervisors and other appropriate public officers and agents of the county with respect to the matters contemplated under this resolution are hereby ratified, confirmed, and approved. So we have the motion and second. Is there any discussion?
Jim?
Yes, Mr. Spacek.
Why, I guess this is my understanding. This is where the big pharmaceuticals were, like, we've gotten payments from them in the past. This is just another one of the lawsuits, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Or is this an ongoing lawsuit?
let the
that's
administrator.
being, I guess.
Yeah, they're not adding to it. They're clarifying what they're doing. So
Okay.
Dickerson, whatever, Kruger Dickerson is our representation. We have to, it's like signing up them as a retainer. They are our legal counsel for this action.
But we don't pay
No,
for
get-
them.
no.
They get paid
Out of the
based on
proceeds.
what we get.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to clarify that.
And we've gotten some, but I think additional funds come from additional defendants. Is
Yeah,
that how it's
so
working?
so far we've received just over $100,000 in the last 3 years, and we've gotten some lump sums. So some of the individuals decided to pay in full or pay ahead, but then there's other individuals that still have chosen to pay over the long run. So we get $4,000 from one set, we get $2,000 from another set. We'll get a check each year. It's up to 20 years. We have a spreadsheet that shows like how much we are assuming to get under each different settlement because it's each group. So what was the big one? Purdue is the largest one. That gave us the largest settlement. But like Walgreens and Kroger and Walmart, they all settled also, which were smaller payments. This is again just shoring up, saying we chose them to represent us in this
Yep.
issue.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Markstrom.
Here, maybe we should talk about what that money is supposed to be used for. I think there's some severe restrictions.
Yep. So we have to put together it's not called a council, it's an ad hoc committee, but they gave it another name. So at the June executive committee meeting, we'll be establishing an ad hoc committee to put together the specific individuals that have to be on that committee. So you have to have community members, you have to have law enforcement, you have to have health and human services. There's like a requirement of individuals to be on it, and then you can determine, then they have to come up with a plan. The plan then has to go through Health and Human Services and then ultimately go to the full board to say, this is how we want to distribute those funds. We as a county are not getting anywhere near what some of the big, like I think was it Barron County? They're already collected over $1 million. We're at 100,000. So the ones that are collecting the large amounts, they're looking to establish like rehab centers, and then this money continues to pay for it for 20 years. And then after 20 years, they'll have to come up with the funding.
Or
We
hope
would
there's
look
another
at,
lawsuit.
yeah, we would have to look at more of, one-time programming. A lot of them are doing billboards type stuff to let people know the dangers of opioids. We talked about law enforcement, looking at products that would help their officers if they were to go into a situation that opioids and fentanyl was present, that they could use it's called a hood. So like if you open drugs, the drugs don't go into the atmosphere, they go up and out like a ventilation system. So there's a lot of options that we can use that for, but we'll start June at the executive to create the committee. The committee then will have to meet and start creating a plan.
Anybody else regarding this resolution? Hearing none, go ahead and vote. The vote's in. We're just trying to share it. Just go ahead and announce it.
Sorry, one more button. Okay, got it. Resolution 1025 passed, confirming and ratifying the authority of council for Price County to add additional defendants to opioid litigation, passed by 12 yes, 1 no.
Okay, moving on. Appointments. Nutrition Advisory Council NAC appointment it's from the Health and Human Services Board. Kay Erickson, term to expire April 30th, 2027. This is motion by Kopish, Hodek second. Basically, this is informational unless there's an objection. Any discussion?
We're just putting them on the meetings, but you guys you accept that these are the appointments being made.
Go ahead. There's no discussion. Go ahead and vote right away. Confirming that appointment. Right. Yeah. Okay, everybody's voted.
That appointment has passed 11 yes, 2 abstain.
Next up, reports. Forestry and Parks Annual Report 2024. You got that in your packet. I think it looks pretty positive. Seems like there's a heightened level of community interest, and revenue was over expenses by a fair amount. We just have to accept this report. Mr. Hastings, do you have any comments? Just on file.
Yeah.
Me or
Mr. Hastings?
Hallstrand?
Oh, never mind. Mr. Hallstrand, do you have any comment? I said the wrong name. I'm sorry.
No.
Anybody else have comment? We're just a voice vote for approval. All those in favor of accepting this report on file, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I believe it's just FYI, so you don't really have to have that, but
Okay.
it works.
Next up is Price County Fair Annual Report. Overall, I believe that looks positive too. It's in your packet. Any discussion?
Just want to say that I'm
Right.
just really pleased to see it and doing so well. Michelle, if you would pass that on to your committee, they're doing a great job.
Shelley, you want to make any comments? Nope. Okay, this is just to be put on file as well. We'll forego the voice vote because apparently we don't need it. Unless there's some objections. Hearing none, we'll move on to Committee of the Whole. Board Chair Report. Well, the biggest thing to talk about, I guess, is what happened at law enforcement. All I can say or want to say is that It was unfortunate. I don't think there was any wrongdoing by any employees. There's bad actors out there. We have safeguards to prevent it from happening in the future. I'm sorry. Gosh, I'm having a tough time today. Anyway, I'm going to put that to bed.
I have a concern. That our,
Go ahead, Mr. Hastings.
sorry, the original announcement did say that we were hacked. It even ended up in the newspaper, news media outlets, which is not true.
What's not true?
WSAW wrote a news story on it saying that we were hacked.
Okay, so
I mean,
you're saying that
that's false information.
that would be my take on it. Yes, they got the wrong information.
I just want to point that out there. I think it made it to the Ladysmith newspaper and several other ones, I guess.
Yeah, they made an assumption without getting the facts.
Yeah, so
like
they'll
we
have
hear
to
nowadays.
retract that or redact that, whatever the. I don't know if that's something that would have to get initiated.
We'll look into
from-
that.
Yeah.
If that's something we should do, have them do a
Right.
retraction. Okay, I'll move on then. Yes, Mr. Palachek.
Is IT working on this problem that we had at Highway and Transportation?
I believe they did work on it. We have safeguards in place so nobody can do that. What happened was,
Unfortunate.
unfortunate, and my take on it, it was a safeguard that wasn't checkboxed. We assumed everybody would be decent people, and there wouldn't be somebody out there that would hack us. I'm sorry, I used the wrong word. That would display this kind of imagery. They had the ability to do that because we always allow presenters to show PowerPoint presentations or whatever. Now they have to ask permission. Before it was just left open. That's my understanding. Mr. Hallstrand.
Mr. Chairman, a few years back, we haggled with this electronic meetings issue, and at that time in the admin committee, you only know what you know and you don't know. We knew that this would be a learning experience and that there would be things that we would have to change going along. And I guess how these people accessed and were able to display is one of the things we just learned. It's unfortunate. It was terrible that it happened. But when you're starting something new with new technology, you don't always know what all the pitfalls are going to be. As we go along and we learn more, I'm sure we will be making more changes and whatnot. But it was kind of being pushed by the public that we have our meetings made public, and I agreed wholeheartedly that we did. So this is something we've learned now that shouldn't happen again in that scenario.
To Larry's question, their IT did investigate and talk to HBS. There is a report on file of everything that happened, what the investigation, all the timelines. That is not a public record though, because it does show here are, if you were a bad guy, this is where you should attack our system, because they look for any weaknesses, which then we can help. It has nothing to do with WebEx, but in general, those type of reports do not get released. If anybody wants to see it, you're more than welcome to contact IT and you can sit down with them and review it. We just aren't, it's not a public record because of the stuff that's in it.
Okay, I'll move on with my report. Just generally speaking, I've been kept informed of issues going on, such as a missing person, employee issues, which we can't really talk about details, but I've been aware of and kept up to date on those, and various budget issues, and talking about the upcoming budget talks we're going to have in a month or two. I've also offered opinions on contract fulfillment, especially one issue regarding gravel. We also talked about possible land sale of county property that's along a right of way that we have no use for it. A private individual is interested in buying it. So been talking about that. And that's all I have. Any questions, comments? Okay. County Administrators Report, 2025 Financial Summary Updates. You have that in your packet.
Twenty 2025 is in your packet, like Brian stated. We're 33% through the year. We have spent 31.56% of our general fund expenses. That will change a little bit in May. May is our 3 payroll months, so you're always slowly behind until you hit those 3 payroll months, and then you catch up to kind of, or you pass the percentage that you're at, and then you'll slowly go back again until you get to your next 3 payroll, and then hopefully at the end of the year you balance out. Not a lot to discuss in the general fund for 2025. We made some corrections to going into this year with the budget. If we haven't had our final audit, but if you look at the preliminary audit, we were about $1 million something over in our general fund. $500,000 of that was law enforcement between the jail and the sheriff's department. That comes down to, we had 4 homicides. We had several individuals that were out on leave, either military or, so what's that one, USRA or FMLA, which then creates need to backflow, and so that's overtime. We also didn't collect as much as we had hoped in forestry for stumpage last year, so that was about $500,000 of that. So in general, it was over two major areas that last year. So we did make some of those adjustments going into this year, but we also started the year off with the missing person, and then one other big issue in sheriff's department. So again, overtime happening. So that's the general fund. Health and Human Services, they talk quite a bit about high cost placements at their meeting. I believe we have 2 individuals that are quite expensive. I think one was like $17,000 a month in a placement, and then another high cost placement. Not much we can do about those. A lot of it is getting the programming, the median programming in place, which is not covered by the state, but that also prevents those high cost placements when you can work with the families or the individuals before we get to the high cost placements. The AODA mental health, that one is below last year's budget, but it's still pretty high. We're seeing quite a few more cases than we did last year. I think we're already at like 50 this year. That one, though, a lot of the expenses have shifted over to the CCS program, which is state funded. Other funds, nothing jumps out. Animal control, we did have another hoarding type case up in the Fifield area. That one wasn't as expensive as our previous one, but we did have some issues with animals there. Highway, they had a pretty light spring, not a lot of weekends, not a lot of storms, so that helps going into the construction time with our budget. Cash on hand, we're about $936,000 less than last year this month. Most of that comes about because we paid our loans off early. We take out loans, get cash in December, and then we pay them back. Usually we pay them in that March, April. We paid them early this year in January. Sales tax, starting off the year really well. We're 10% above last year at this time. We did have 2 years in a row that we hit 1.4 million. So we have become a little bit plateaued, but word across the state is everybody's doing well going into the second month, so February. Stumpage, this year we are 15% ahead of last year. We have some big sales going. We did our bid opening. We had more than we expected. We had 5 that didn't get bid on, but in general, the ones that did get bid on were higher than the minimum of the total. So those 5 are still available, and we should. Joe's saying we should do okay with budget. No spectacular year where we're gonna go way ahead of it, but right now we're on pace to do okay for stumpage. Like I talked, high cost placements. Last year we were at 71,000 at this point. We're at 179,000 already, so $107,000 more than last year at this time. AODA high cost placements were $66,000 behind last year, so we had 186 at this point last year, and we have 119 in 2025. Insurance, we've seen we're $50,000 in the negative for our insurance. However, we did start, what was it, 279,000 in the red for that fund. We are moving up. We were broke even in March. April, we fell behind a little bit, but in general, our health insurance is doing well. We are seeing large increases across the board. The state's already warning, if you're on the state program, it's like 14 to 16% increase. The school just saw a renewal of 26, but they ended up doing some changes to theirs. I don't know what percentage they ended up with. I know they went self-funded. We will see some changes going into 2026 and 2027 with our health insurance. But being self-funded, we can manage that a lot better than just the company saying, here's your 20% renewal, good luck. We have the ability to manage that differently. So Tailored Health is still a great partner. That saves us, I figure, between $4 and $7 per dollar we spend there. So we're working on getting a report again. We did used to get a report where for every dollar if we had this many appointments at Tailored, they could plug it into the codes that you'd pay at like anywhere around here, the hospitals or the clinics. And it would tell you if you went to the clinics and hospitals, it would have cost you $13,000 where you only paid $3,000 with Tailored. We're trying to get that back. That the employee that did that left Tailored. So hopefully we can get some of that back, those reports. Any questions about 2025's financials?
I'm just curious about the high cost placement children and youth versus AODA. One's higher, one's lower. Is that part of that because we changed the definition of where they're placed?
No, we did that, like 2 years? We talked about that quite a bit last year, I think, where it was like we were putting everything that was a children and youth in children and youth when really there was mental health, AODA. So we started charging it to the area that they were being serviced. I think what's happening is the AODA is starting to go to CCS, which is state funded. And then also some of those are that we were able to classify under the mental health or the drug, whatever it might be, are just high cost placement children and youth right now. So they do bounce back and forth based on the funding that they can get and use. So that's why in general, we try to, if you look at their end of year, their fund balance is just all in one. So if one's doing well and the other one's doing bad, they cover each other for that fund. But this is just a way to track our.
But we've gone beyond or past comparing apples to oranges. I'm talking last year versus this year.
This year and last year should be comparable.
Apples to apples.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, you're right. Prior year, it was more of that apples to oranges, unless you look at the total together.
Anyone else? Mr. Bracca.
So I'd just like to say thanks to Nick for the report. I'd also like to take this time to comment on some of the allegations and concerns that have been coming out here. First of all, I want to give my total support to Nick and vote of confidence for what he and his office does. This report, the county's fiscal responsibility and situation, is a direct result of how Nick performs his job and how his staff does. So I want to give that vote of support. And again, I've known Nick a long time. I think he does a stellar job. I don't think people realize all that he does behind the scenes, the after evening events that he goes to be active in the community, to go to WCA or WTA meetings, the things that he does. Again, I want to give my full support to our administrator, Mr. Trimner. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
I will concur too as well. Mr. Kopish.
Same here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Polachek.
I was here before Nick, and what he does, it's heartburn for the elected people to do that. He just takes the load off of our shoulders, and I support him 110%. Thank you, Nick. No, just since we've owned him here.
Any other comments or questions for the administrator in his report? Okay,
I have one thing.
Mr. Hastings.
Nick, I've heard you talk about the amount of savings we've had by going to Tailored Clinic, and as an employee of Marshfield Clinic, I get a little concerned at how well you paint the Tailored Clinic and the amount of savings you get from them. And just some concern for Aspirus and Marshfield Clinic that you don't defame them anyway. I know that's not what you're doing, but you just gotta be careful on what you're saying about. I understand the savings. I understand that. You're just really walking really close to painting it in a bad picture with the numbers.
Anyone else?
I'd like to comment on that. I don't
Ms.
see
Hodak.
anything being painted bad on there. He's just reporting on something that we have started through the county. I've heard nothing but great things about that. But if the discussion were Aspirus or Marshfield, I believe you'd still hear some good things too. This was just a report for Tailored.
Yep. And I think they're all good. Right now, it's about saving money. Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Are they ready? Okay. At this time, we will convene out of the committee of the whole to go back to presentations. Number 2, bug tussle update. Go ahead, Mitch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for a little bit of tardiness today. Lots of moving parts on our end. But thank you guys for having me back and the opportunity to provide an update on what we have going in Price County. At this point, there's kind of 3 branches of things that we have ongoing. We have the fiber side, we have the tower side, and then we have a little bit of work that we're doing with AT&T. So if, Nick, if you can give me the ability to share, I'd like to throw the map up just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So we had a meeting a few weeks ago with, I apologize, I forget which radio contractor you're working with, to talk through the placement of the tower sites and the county's intention to use those tower sites for your E911 communications. So that is an ongoing process as we go through the work of siting the towers. The federal government has thrown up a bit of a roadblock with the timing on when we're going to be able to get these towers up. Obviously, Price County is heavily wooded and there's a moratorium. I believe it's because of bats, of doing any tree clearing on any federally related undertaking during the summer months until late October, beginning of November. So for the tower sites that we're working through right now, significant majority of them are going to end up in the woods rather than in a farm field, just the nature of where we're looking to put those towers. So we won't be clear from a regulatory standpoint until towards the end of the year. Not a roadblock we like to see. Obviously, the window that you have to get towers out of regulatory is shrinking by the day. As part of the process, you have to go through an archaeological study, which you're not allowed to do when the ground is frozen. So there was already kind of a narrow window on, well, not necessarily narrow, but there was already a window on when things could come out of regulatory, meaning anything that you got leased in the second half of the year wasn't going to be ready until the middle of the following summer. And then as things come out in the ordinary course in the middle of the following summer, you can't actually move on that construction until the tree clearing moratorium is lifted. So ultimately, things aren't going to be ready to be built until November, independent of when ultimately we have those sites leased and ready to go. That's just kind of how the calendar is falling at this point. We have obviously 9 towers that we're building through that program. And then we have an additional 2 sites, one in Fifield, one in Park Falls, that we are building for AT&T. Our next generation contract with AT&T has it's footprint based, and it does include the northern portion of Price County. So we're going to be able to deploy some AT&T sites in the northern part of the county, and then ultimately, as that program expands, get AT&T onto additional sites throughout the county is the goal. Obviously, Price County is very near and dear to my heart. I'm very aware of the cellular issues there. So whenever we have conversations with any of the carriers, particularly AT&T, about what the next step is, how the program continues to expand, it is the first thing out of my mouth. So we're working through all of that on the tower siting side, on the AT&T side. And then on fiber, we're anxiously awaiting BEAD to kind of play itself out. Obviously, we had an intention of what we were going to put in the southern portion of the county, but we haven't broke ground on any of that yet as we continue to iterate through the BEAD process, making sure that we're hitting the goals that we need to as far as what an expected customer base is going to be, and not duplicating efforts with anybody else. Our focus is likely going to be or continue to be somewhere in the southern portion of the county, just where we have proximity to the existing network we have coming out of Taylor County. But BEAD ultimately is going to be relatively informative on the best way to spend those dollars. Ultimately, it's a very good thing if we're able to take the money that we have raised through the bond program and leverage that to the tune of 80 or 90%, spending 10 cents on the dollar, building what we thought we were going to have to spend an entire dollar on. It's going to make it a lot healthier program financially, but it does cause a little bit of a delay as we wait through the process for the government to ultimately decide how those funds are going to be allocated. Obviously, there's a little bit of turmoil in Washington right now as we figure out how much of that program survives and exactly what it looks like. Early words out of the PSC are that nothing is going to change in any significant way, and that is a little bit expected, as broadband is generally a pretty bipartisan issue that everybody supports. But ultimately, it is a very different administration than there was when this program was born, and making sure that it aligns with their interests seems to be just kind of the process that they're going through. So overall, things are progressing, albeit a little bit slowly because of a handful of government regulations and things that we're running into. But expectation that we'll have all the towers up and everything kind of pointed in the right direction, and construction ongoing through the end of 25 and the beginning of 26. Open it up for questions if anyone has any.
You have the ability to share, Mitch, if you'd like.
Oh. Thank you, Nick. There we go. So we have the Catawba Tower standing, as many of you know. The Addison Road Tower is working through the tree clearing issue as we speak. And then we have the handful of open diamonds that we're working through now. The two red ones, and I apologize that the one in Fifield is named Park Falls. That's AT&T's name for it, and it drives me nuts, but is what it is. And then there's a site in Park Falls downtown as well that we are working on siting towers for those two. And then we have the remainder of the bond towers that are in blue that are at various points in the site acquisition process, a couple of them being leased, a couple of them still working with candidates, ultimately trying to find the best sites that make sense for us, as well as working with your radio vendor to make sure that we have everything covered that you guys are looking to cover. We do have flexibility with ultimately where these tower sites are placed. So there's putting a high priority on what your radio vendor decides what you need, so we can make sure that we're putting towers in the right spot for you while we have the opportunity to.
Yeah, so we're working with Northway, that's the radio
you go.
vendor, to come up with a plan, because there's a huge difference in, do we need 2 towers or 6 towers or 4 towers or whatever it might be. We can cover the county with 4 towers per, but the equipment that you need is, 9,000 kilowatts rather than 6,000 kilowatts. Well, the price difference may make it a better option to go with 6 towers rather than 4 towers. So we'll be working with Northway. They're going to come up with a general plan. Right now, it's looking to be between equipment in-house, radios, and towers, about $1 million to upgrade our communications. A lot of that, again, every radio you get's $10,000. It's not not cheap to get handheld, but it will not affect the local fire departments, EMS, anything like that. With a transition, they'll still be able to use their equipment, so it won't force somebody else to do something with their product. Are there questions for Mitch? That's why we brought him here.
Mr. Kopish.
Yeah, I got a question. This has to do with the AT&T versus, I'd say Verizon at this point. I used to have AT&T on my cell phone and I switched to Verizon because AT&T's coverage wasn't as good as it should be. You're putting AT&T is going to be going on these towers, I understand. Yeah, go ahead.
If I can interject, AT&T at this point is going on 2 of them. I personally am a Verizon customer as well, despite operating about 500 sites for AT&T throughout Wisconsin and Iowa, and now growing into Minnesota. Because you're right, and nobody take a screenshot, is if you look at AT&T's existing footprint throughout Price County, is we're replacing the 2 sites they have in Park Falls. They're on the tower behind the phone company in Phillips. They have a site in Prentice, and then they have one in Spirit and one over here. So obviously there's significant gaps in what the level of coverage that you'd like to see from a provider throughout the county, and this map will slowly kind of about it.
Right.
So that's why we're in a large part. That's why we're in business, is helping AT&T expand their footprint through the rural space. Is we got a big partnership with them squared away when they were going through the first iteration of their required FirstNet deployment, and so that's how we got kind of our foot in the door with them, and ultimately the programs have been successful, and we're on to our 3rd iteration of that. So looking at the map, the blue being what AT&T's coverage is generally pretty terrible, and that's what we're working to do. So in addition to focusing on the county's priorities with the towers that you guys need, we're making sure that they're towers that make sense within AT&T's footprint, and as our next project with them grows and expands, adding AT&T equipment to those existing sites. That said, we're not completely devoted to AT&Ts. We continue to have conversations with the other carriers, T-Mobile, Verizon, Cellcom, if we can get them out of the Green Bay area. But ultimately, pushing all of these pieces together is a lot easier once the towers exist. Is we'll have the towers up and standing and ready for when AT&T comes along or when Verizon comes along, and they're starting to do that a lot more than they have in the past, because all of the carriers seem to be reaching into the rural space a little bit more. I think it does have a lot to do with AT&T's FirstNet and how much they reached out, which you guys, for whatever reason, and it's population, but you got left a little bit behind in how much they reached out to the FirstNet side of things. So it's still kind of a little last frontier between Price, Sawyer, and Rusk counties in particular, but even some of the stuff in the rural areas of the other counties throughout the state. But ultimately, again, it's an iterative process, and it might be a onesie twosie. Verizon adds a co-location in Ogama, Verizon adds a co-location out by Musser, but it's just kind of working through that process. I agree with you as we sit today. Is Verizon is the best you got, but even Verizon still isn't that good. The county needs more towers, and the county needs more carriers located on those towers, and that's what we work on every day.
Is that color you just put up, is that Verizon?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. And Verizon does have gaps. But what I heard, and I think you answered my question, is they will be able to use the towers also to improve their system, right?
Yes, they absolutely would. It's the process of getting them to think it's a good idea is definitely a lift, but that's what I do.
Okay, thank you.
Can you explain the FirstNet and why AT&T is that partner with that, and who that's for? It's not for technically us.
No, so yes and no. So in the first part of the decade, the federal government sequestered a set of spectrum that was going to be reserved for emergency communications and in the cellular space. So so AT&T won that contract and ultimately created a giant set of obligations for themselves as far as how much of the country by a population standpoint has to be covered. So AT&T has had an obligation to build up a lot of rural spaces they had previously neglected for the sake of hitting their coverage objectives under their FirstNet obligations. So that is the largest driver of cellular growth into the rural space over the lifetime of cellular existing. Consequently, it significantly improved AT&T's coverage, and the other carriers are obviously having to fill in the gaps behind them to keep pace. The FirstNet is not intrinsically AT&T. It's technically a separate carrier that also roams on AT&T. But the biggest thing of it is the customers of FirstNet are limited to emergency employees, government employees, and it has a network prioritization. So if you're at the 4th of July in Elk Lake Park, no one can send any text messages at all because of just the amount that the network is being overblown. But cellular communication for law enforcement officers is theoretically, in practice, is prioritized over the rest of the traffic that's trying to utilize the same network. So the feds sequestered a bunch of spectrum to create this program so that traffic issues do not impact emergency communications, and AT&T was ultimately the winner in that process. So as we sit today, I cannot imagine that you guys use FirstNet for your police communications on the cellular side, just because the coverage is still kind of terrible. But as the FirstNet network continues to grow, their expectation and their hope is that the majority of people switch to FirstNet because of this prioritization that they're able to do, and because of how theoretically more efficient communication is going to operate over this sequestered spectrum space.
Mr. Barkstrom, do you have a question?
Is T-Mobile a player in this program?
T-Mobile is interesting because historically, no. They were 100% an urban provider and did a lot of roaming in the rural space. They're acquiring US Cellular, and that's still kind of in process. And I have seen a ton more rural growth out of T-Mobile than I had in the previous 5 years that I've been here. Is we've had T-Mobile co-locate on probably 5 or 6 of the other towers we have constructed throughout the state just over the first 3 months of this year. So they're definitely reaching out a lot more into the rural space than they have in the past. I think their US Cellular relationship and their acquisition there has a lot to do with that. But yes, it's coming down to 3 players at this point. Obviously, well, probably not obviously, but there's another player looming in the wings in Dish, because the Fed wants there to be 4 providers. But ultimately, those 3 are steps ahead of the others on a national basis. But we have conversations with all of them, trying to get as much equipment on all of our towers as possible. And something like Price County, something like Taylor County, something like Sawyer County are still very Wild West for them. There's very real customer growth opportunity in these counties despite their low population. 1, because of vacation travel, and 2, just because everyone in town is going to switch when something actually works, not just kind of works like Verizon does, but when something actually works well. That's our sales pitch, is like, look, everyone is default on, in reality, Alltel, not even Verizon. And as we kind of move and continue to develop these tower sites and fill in the gaps, there's a lot of customers to be won for a national carrier who actually prioritizes the rural space.
Mitch, there was a question earlier before you logged on about the change in, I guess, cell phones and like the Starlink and it was a T-Mobile or AT&T that are going to allow text messages through that. How is that being addressed, or what are your thoughts with how that affects this program?
It's still a degraded service. Granted, it's functional, it's operable. T-Mobile is the one that has partnered with Starlink to do some of the satellite stuff. It's still not going to be as a reliable a service product, just due to the physical limitation of having to go all the way to space and come back down. There's always going to be a play for towers, and ultimately, I very comfortable with that, and the industry is very comfortable with that. It's definitely an interesting model, but at the end of the day is going to be a stopgap. As more of the country is fibered and more towers are constructed, the latency that you're going to get from the cellular network is going to be 10 times improved relative to having to go to space every time you send a text.
Anybody else? Mr. Hastings.
Mitch, I heard on the radio last night that the BEAD grants were canceled because of their involvement with DEI. Is that going to affect your overall business plan here?
I don't know where you heard that on the radio. I haven't heard that in any space, and I would be absolutely shocked if that's ultimately how that goes out. If any of the programs that we had going with Price County weren't dependent on BEAD, is the money we raise is the money that we raised. How we deploy that money is definitely affected by BEAD, because we don't need to duplicate efforts by whoever the BEAD winner is for the territories that we're looking at. But in the event in Price County, as we're not going to be the one that wins a significant majority of the BEAD, it's probably better for us if BEAD doesn't happen, as the money that we're looking to spend won't be competing with cheap money from the Fed. But I haven't heard that, and I think my world would be blowing up if that was actually the case.
Mitch, can you talk about it, since there was a BEAD question? I know the first round happened. That was really focused on the in ground, the fiber to the home or fiber. With the future of BEAD, there is a lot of consideration with like a wireless product. Have you heard that? Is that, which I'm assuming would help your stance, because that you're the towers with the wireless product?
Yeah, is we can definitely put together very competitive bids in the event that there's going to be a lot of awards in the wireless space. Ultimately, the priority of the PSC, at the very least, who's ultimately implementing the federal money and the federal dollars in BEAD, until their directive change, their priority is as much fiber as they can afford to do, leaving aside a little bit of funding available to make sure that everybody has some level of improved connection, improved connectivity. So the map that I have shown up in front of you today, the little Jackson Pollock, is what was ultimately BEAD eligible in Price County. So the first round has come and gone. There have been preliminary awards. There have been areas where there is no decisive winner, and then there's stuff that's theoretically still up for grabs. I don't know who won what. I don't know what happened with these yet, but what I do know is that of the BEAD locations, the red dots are either someone has been awarded or there is no decisive winner, and the green dots are still completely available from a standpoint. Either the bids that they got were sufficiently non-competitive that they just said no, or no one bid on the green territories. But ultimately, that's what is in play yet, or does not have a direction from the PSC, are the green dots. So the areas in the extreme north, east, and west side of the county, including the territory by Pike Lake, the absolute southernmost stuff, and then a handful of project units off of Highway 8, largely between Catawba and Prentice. If there's some level, and the PSC plays it very close to the vest as to where their thresholds are and how these numbers ultimately fit together. There is kind of a large expectation that, barring a waiver from the NTIA, any individual provider is coming at least 25% out of pocket for any of the projects. But there's also some level of that's just too much in a context of a project unit. So if you have a project unit that has 10 homes in it and you're spending $25,000-$30,000 per home that you pass, the PSC is just going to look at that and say that's not an efficient use of the money. I guess we're going to have to do that footprint wirelessly unless someone comes up with another bid. So as round 2 here is due at the end of next week, and once we see the results from round 2 and what's still available for round 3, the expectation is that round 3 is going to be largely an alternative technology round. If the PSC has its way, there will be nothing left, but there's going to be something left that's going to get bid on by satellite and wireless providers.
Any other comments or questions? Any closing remarks, Mitch?
I have nothing. Well, thank you for the time, and I'll look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you for the update. Just a comment. I hope you all noticed Mitch had to ask for permission to display his map. Nick had to enable that. That's the new safeguard we have in place. In the past, Mitch would have been able to just put it up there. So just wanted to make a comment on that. Okay, moving on. Go to Committee of the Whole again. Chair reports. Administration.
Administration met, we had a discussion on the supervisor procedure manual. That'll be an ongoing discussion. It'll be on the agenda again for the June meeting. We had got a letter from the deputies union that they would like to start negotiating, which is probably good for us because it'll be a little bit earlier start and it'll help with budgeting. We approved overtime for child support to work with Dodge County. 10 hours a week is the limit, and it'll be in addition to what they normally work. So,
Paid for by Dodge County.
yeah, Dodge County will pay for it. And we had a closed session item where we discussed an independent hearing officer's recommendation, and it was the committee's choice to accept the recommendation. And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Warco? Okay, next up is executive, that'd be me. First, we heard the treasurer's report. The highlight in my mind was that the in-rem properties were at that time down to 6, so that's a good thing. A good amount of back taxes have been paid, along with penalties and any interest. Another discussion item was new software is needed for the treasurer's office and the Register of Deeds. Current software is going to become unsupportive, so the various departments are working together to get the best fit for everybody, not just one department, but they're all talking. That's good. The administrator gave his report, which he just gave us a little while ago, the same thing. Another item, WCA is looking for resolutions to present to the state legislature. If you have anything that you'd like to see WCA lobby for, we'll have to get it on the agenda for the next board meeting because it has to be passed by the full board before we can submit it to the WCA.
Or any that we've already passed.
Or any that we've already passed, we can also submit. So if you want to recommend one of the previous resolutions going forward. We talked about the opioid resolution, which we voted on today. We talked about where we're going to get money for the electrical panel project, and I'm not going to go any further on that because I don't want to take Jeff's thunder away. Talked about the annexation of city property to the town of Elk. So that the 2 supervisor districts involved will have to be redrawn. It only affects 3 residents. So numbers wise for population, it won't affect anything. We just got to do the paperwork to let the state know that it's no longer city proper or part of the city. It's town of Elk. Talked about the money for the equipment fund to finance the boom mower shortfall. Got about 147,000 left over from the grader loan that we decided to put towards a new boom mower, but it's going to cost a little more than that. So we're moving money from the equipment fund to cover that. And lastly, we talked about the updated procedure that's being worked on for property that was previously taxed as personal property. Specifically, as far as I know, the only items that are done that way are hangars at the airport. Or MFL land, yes. I stand corrected. That's all I have. Any questions? Okay, Forestry and Parks, Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Hallstrand.
Okay, I'll start with buildings and grounds. You have 2.5 major issues, really.
2.5.
2.5. I'm going to say half because the half is the boilers, when we had the power go out and it was in a brownout phase, it took out some motors for our boiler pumps. We're hoping insurance is going to pay for that. That was still a pending investigation, I guess. But what caused that is one of the major issues, and that's a really old panel that we have in the basement where the power comes into the building. And the switches in there are old switches that are worn out, MD'd, having a hard time finding parts. So we're going to be getting quotes on replacing that, and it's going to be quite expensive, but kind of power to this building is a very important issue. So we feel needs to be addressed. So we're looking anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 for that kind of emergency type of project. We'd gotten an estimate from Piper out of Park Falls, and they estimated around that 150 to 180,000. They'll have to get a crane to bring the new equipment into the building. Power will be out over the weekend at least. So that's a big project that stay in touch. It'll be raising. How we fund it is going to be happening here soon. The other thing was that there was some piping over in the sheriff's department that was leaking that Josh is kind of going to have to do some replumbing, because this piping goes over the top of the evidence room and was leaking. So it creates issues. So those were Josh's main fires for this past month. He has new ones every month, but he attends to them. So that's it for buildings and grounds. Forestry, Joe sent me a text here after Nick's meeting. So I'll give the good news is he said we're actually with receivables over $1 million in stumpage year to date. So that is considerably up from last year. So that's good. He also indicated another good thing is that Lower Steve Creek Dam is moving forward in the design process because there were no comments from the wild rice gurus who were holding it up. So they have no issues. So that process of that project will start now. They're working out at Solberg Campground. It's interesting if you go out there and take a look. I mean, a lot of big equipment, moving a lot of dirt. It's starting to take shape where you can kind of see what's happening out there. So that project is moving on. Just replanted the Lugerville job. So that funding that we approve here occasionally for replanting, that 172 acres up in Lugerville was just replanted in Red Pine. So that's very important for the future of our forestry department. And Buer Sawmill, a large employer in the county, depends on us doing that. There's the panel that's going to be replaced, but has a lot of background effect to that panel. I mean, IT had issues in the IT room, and you don't want to start losing equipment in there because the air conditioners went out.
And my understanding it affects the elevators too. So
the elevators are on the switches below the two little red dots there. So they're
so this powers all of us and all the sheriff's department. The one that went out are the two red dots. That's what we replaced. That was the heat pumps, the boilers, and the lights in the hallway are a safety thing. So if it goes out, we know something went out. So they connect those to that switch. And then the air conditioner in the server room. Well, the whole server room went out, but that's the issue. But that has backup batteries. So the one Jeff just mentioned is below that. That one runs all the elevators. The rest of the buildings stuff over here. But this is what Jeff was talking about for the replacement.
Yep, and that's an old box, probably pushing Larry's time here even. So, yeah. So anyway, be prepared. That is good. That has to happen. I mean, that's a kind of an important building infrastructure that has to take place. Timber bids went out, accepted. We had 5 that did not get accepted, but the total was 679,000. So that's, state keeps us right in track for that 1.5 million. Let's see what else. Water was turned on out at the parks. It had to do some small repairs out there. There was only one active sale as of our forestry meeting. Now, I don't know if that's changed. The other update was we had a fair amount of discussion on the Steve Creek gravel pit shooting range, and we as a committee gave Joel and the gentleman from Westboro Sportsman's Club the go ahead to start planning with no financial input from us. They're just gonna kind of, Sportsman's Club has raised 10,000 already and they feel they can get more to put in towards that project. So we said we would help with manpower, but we're not gonna financially commit any money at this time. So if in the event that anything came forward, that will come back to the board for approval. But that is it, if there's no questions.
What?
Oh my gosh. wait
I'm
for
going to
my
ask one
questions.
first.
All
The
right.
ATV trail by Solberg Lake, the DNR was slowing that down.
Today, Joe was meeting with them on more delineation for that trail going out of the back.
Okay, so
So,
we're still working
We're,
on that.
we're still working
Even
on
though the
that one.
trail is already there.
Yes,
We just
from a
have to
road that's
approve it.
there and it's a trail, but they don't, yeah, yep.
Okay, I'm just going to go down the road here. Mr. Polachek, you had your hand up.
Has that contractor cleaned up the oil spill in Skinner Creek and removed that?
I have
drain?
not heard any new updates after we sent them the letter. Did it? I don't know. He didn't bring it up.
I
so.
thought, man, Roger's not here. I thought highway went and helped load it. I thought maybe not. Maybe I.
Joe hasn't said anything, so I'm
Right.
guessing it was taken care of.
If the contractor doesn't clean it up, we're gonna be held liable for it at some point in time.
Yeah. I'll follow up with Joe and ask him.
I'll
Thanks,
kick
Nick.
that one back to highway. It's their pit.
Mr. Brack?
Just something to maybe let Joe know about. I went down Lugerville grade yesterday, and there's 4 or 5 culverts that are totally popped up. You can actually see the plastic culvert above the road grade. So just to give them a heads up if they haven't been down there to take a look at that. It's in that swamp area that I believe is
I
forestry.
would assume they
responsible.
would because they delivered the trees for these guys to plant last week,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, so I went, like I said, I went through there and there is no cover over a couple, so heavy truck might collapse them, just to give you a heads up.
Mr. Hastings?
I'm still learning the processes on how the county board works with this stuff, and I understand the urgency and the need for the circuit panel, but how did that item get out of the Buildings and Grounds Committee and into the executive committee without the committee's approval? There was no vote, there was no motion made.
So I guess I can answer that to some degree because at the committee level, we can't spend the money. It's up to executive to come up with where the money is going to come from. So that's why it went back up to executive to say, let's get some bids. We know the project has to be done. So executive is trying to figure out where the money's gonna come from and collect the bids because it's a substantial amount of money. So that's kind of.
That's correct. And then it got into discussion because that was part of the supervisor, or not, whatever Josh's title is, head of Buildings and Grounds. He brought it up in his report, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and his was 108,000. Now it's 175.
That was a hundred, it was 180.
Yeah, no, it was
But it
100.
was an estimate.
Yeah, there was
We're now
108 for equipment.
Sending it out for bids.
It was 108 for equipment that didn't include getting it
crane.
here and putting it in. So we've been estimating like 125 to 150.
Right.
So how does the executive committee supersede the Buildings and Grounds?
Executive committee is like, it used to be considered the finance committee, so
'Cause
they are the funding mechanism.
Executive has to approve the spending of the
Right,
money.
right.
So they're being made aware of this issue coming. If Buildings and Grounds says, yep, we want to do it, then executive would have to have a final review of the.
The bids will still come to us at Buildings and Grounds. Then we'll forward it on to executive and say, okay, we've approved these bids. It needs to be funded.
And in case there's any question, we've gone to
Gotta fund it before we approve it.
one
Approve the bids,
contractor
yeah.
for a initial estimate, but when it comes down to it, we're going to put it out for
bid it.
bidding.
Right.
Yeah, the RFP process.
Anything else for Mr. Hallstrand? Okay, we'll move on. Ms. Hodek, Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Health and Human Services met on May 14th. We had the usual beginnings, and then we had Public Health meeting, Unit Tiffany Polachek. She gave her quarterly report, presented on communicable disease, preparedness, community needs assessment, planning, and immunizations. A presentation from THC is changing impact on our public health was presented by Jojo Baratka with Susie Daniels. Now, I have to say, if you get a chance to hear that presentation anywhere, please do. Jojo does a great job. There's a lot of information that comes out of that. And if you need any help with understanding anything, she's really good with it. And Susie is right there with her. So pleased with that. We had, I was invited to the Waldap Board of Health Forum, which is the Wisconsin Association of Local Health Departments and Boards. And we met to discuss advocacy and lobbying work as board members, and among other discussion, including supporting Board of Health members too. So many times we get too busy with all of the bureaucracy, but we always have to remember to be helpful and compassionate to those people who are doing the work out there with the boots on the ground. And so they need our support all the way. It was a good forum. I was pleased to be invited to that. We had all different kinds of people from the county, from all over the state, and then others who were invited, but it was such a beautiful day, and the meeting was at 6 o'clock at night, and so many didn't show for that, which goes to show those late meetings aren't always the best thing. Vital Strategies Opioid Settlement Fund matching requests for proposals. That was something that came up at a WCA Monday morning update. Nick and I agreed that probably we should just bring it to the Health and Human Services Board. Nick presented it, and we agreed with him at that time that really that's not something, there are monies to begin it, but to sustain it, that would be on the backs of the county. So we weren't sure if we're going to kind of look at a little bit more. The deadline for that was June 30th. So we have just a little bit of time yet to do that. So no action happened. Nothing was taken. Aging and Disability Senior Services, Chris Mabey and Don Griesel were part of a presentation with a dementia-friendly training that was Shea O'Rourke. He gave a 30-minute presentation on the program, and it's pretty in depth too. That's another kind of issue that no one really wants to discuss, but we all need to be aware of what's going on out there. Unfortunately, at that time, I had to leave the meeting for a appointment that I had. This meeting usually doesn't take that long. So Vice Chair Bob Kopich took over for me. If you want me, I can just present the rest from here. Okay. The quarterly reports were presented for Aging and Disability, Children and Youth, Behavioral Health Unit, Economic Support, Fiscal Administrative Unit. Those were all presented, and now they're on file. Appointments to approve Nutrition Advisory Committee appointments were Kay Erickson to fill the Ogama Apprentice seat, which you all just voted on. And then updates on seats and terms, counting on Council on Aging, which is COA, NAC, which is Nutrition Advisory Committee. And they all have some terms that are going to be expiring soon. So those are being looked at. We have some people who are interested in doing that, so we'll look and bring that back to you maybe next month. Let's see. We had Senior Citizens Quarterly Report, and then quick little things that Chris maybe reported on. Home delivered meal membership has grown quite a bit. 4,120 meals were served through January through March, approximately 90 meals a day. Transportation program drove 4,961 miles in Q1. The community outreach program, Strong Bodies, is considering moving to the Presbyterian Church. They need more room, which is a plus. We have a lot of people who are involved in that, and it's good to see that. Looking to purchase more vouchers and spaces for the participants of the Eat Smart, Move More, Weigh Less programs. And let's see, I told you about the ones that reported, and Sarah Soha with her director report. Carrie Krupp, Carrie, what does she go by? Krupp, okay. And Chris maybe applied for surplus county funding, and the agency received $46,199 for congregate and another $3,000 for elder abuse. So that's really good that we could get that. The table at the Sport and Home Show was very successful. A lot of people visited, a lot of questions were asked. And the month of May is both Economic Support Month and the Foster Care Month. June is the World Elder Abuse Awareness Month. In April, a banquet for volunteer drivers was held in April at Marie's on Fayette. It was a great turnout. We recognize Lauren Nelson, who drove for 20 years for the agency, and he's still driving. Good for him. There are 3 positions with openings, 1 in family skills, gift coordinator, and admin position. Advertisements have been placed. I did want to say that I spoke to the volunteer drivers, and I told them that we really appreciate not only them volunteering, but what really becomes very important in those kinds of situations is that we have somebody who are our eyes and our ears as to what's going on in some of these homes that maybe need some attention. And sometimes we don't know that. So without these drivers being out there and being friends with the people that they're delivering meals to, it really helps our program. So if you know anyone who is interested in driving, volunteering, working with people who are shut-ins, we certainly can use more help. Thank you very much. Next meeting is June 11th.
Go ahead.
I was going to say with the volunteer driver, the reason we're seeing a decline in the volunteer drivers, and this is a state, we're working with the state on this, it's across the board, is they've changed the requirements they haven't. Insurance companies have changed their requirements for their insurance. So if you say to your insurance company, I'm transporting individuals as like a service, they make you get a whole different level of insurance, which now your mileage that you would get as a volunteer driver isn't covering the cost of doing this and the time. So 1, that's being looked at. And then 2, this isn't just in general across the state. It's hard to get volunteers. People don't want to drive extra miles, don't want to do that. It is tough. On Shay's presentation, the dementia one, we are going to work after we saw that we are working with them, because one of our updates that we have going on in this building is signage. And with Shay's presentation, it talked about making sure you have large signs, where it should go, whatever. So it was a little bit more defined. We believe, I'm working with Sarah, we're hoping to get some funding from the dementia programming that would allow us to pay for some of that signage if we meet the criteria that they would be looking at. Rather than, a smaller sign, we would have to get a bigger sign
Right.
and things like that. So we are working with Shay and Sarah on building signage.
These
after that
presentations do bring awareness to everything that
Yeah, it was
we
interesting.
don't know what's going on in their bubbles with which they work. So it's nice that we can do that. Mr. Kopish, did you have something to add for that?
Yeah, did you want to go first or?
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to comment on Shay's presentation also. And as you get older, which we all do, memory loss gets to be a big deal. And sometimes it's memory loss, sometimes it's more serious when you get into dementia. And then you talk about the big A word, which is Alzheimer's. And listening to his presentation on that was very meaningful, since I'm getting older and dealing with people that have these issues. But basically, the key things is you need to support, you need to have compassion, and you need to have patience. That helps with the situation. It doesn't cure it, but it helps the people that are going through it, because it's amazing. You put yourself in their place when you can't remember stuff, or you're wondering if you got the big A or all that kind of stuff. Just think about it. It was very meaningful. I got a lot out of it anyway.
And
thank you.
And to add to what Mr. Kopish said, also that compassion needs to go further to the caretakers of the people who are suffering with dementia. They need that compassion and understanding as well.
And Shay's presentation was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the
Mhm.
meeting. It's actually a 90-minute program. So he skipped a lot and went through a lot of it very quickly. We can work with Health and Human Service and do one locally, that if you guys want to participate, or if anything like that. So just let me know and we can work with Sarah and Shay.
I'd just like to comment, the presentations were excellent. Both that one and then the one from HHS
Yeah.
regarding CBD and hemp, THC. I guess my comment would be, can we get them to come to law enforcement maybe? So we can, okay.
That was the plan.
Because that's been on the law enforcement agenda, I think the last 2 meetings regarding our ordinance, and whether people
Right.
want it to be rescinded, and I think we need to make a decision one way or the other, or hopefully at the next law enforcement committee meeting. If it doesn't get out of committee, it'll be over. If it gets out of committee, then we'll be talking about it.
And you're correct, Mr. Chair. We were supposed to have, we didn't have a HHS meeting last month. And so they wanted us to have the presentation first and then it would go to law
Sure.
enforcement. So now it will be on
Yep.
that as well. But it is Jojo does a great job.
Anything else for Ms. Hodak? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on. Highway and Transportation, Mr. Polchek.
Thank you. At Highway, we had 2 days of chainsaw training, co-opted with the City of Phillips, airport dams, and forestry. Completed brush cutting on County Trunk Highway H, D, and State Highway 13. Several storm cleanups, trees, and washouts. Bridge washing on County Trunk highways has started. All county and state intersections have been swept. Swept all the blacktop for the town of Elk. Started pulling shoulders up on state trunk highways. Sign repairs started from winter damage. Wrote and crack filled 8 miles on State Highway 13 South. Began route and crack with 26 lane miles on State Highway 86. Final ditching was started on County Trunk C South in preparation for paving. Highway Shop took delivery of 8-ton deck over 22-foot tilt equipment trailer. Cat grader was received and put into service. County trucks have had their plow equipment removed. Shop is currently converting the state trucks to summer use. Spring auction has ended. Dams. General status, dam status is good. All lake levels are back to full summer levels. Condition of concrete structure and gates are good. No major spalling or winter damage noticed. Job's Dam upcoming summer project to brush and gravel access easements from the north side this year. Weimer's Dam, good shape with relatively mild winter made for no major concrete cracks or spalling. Will need to replace some large riprap rocks. Prentice Dam, good shape, will need to replace some riprap and purchase a spare chain hoist and some concrete maintenance. Sailor Creek Dam, good shape, will need to add some riprap and replace the chain hoist. Musser Dam, good shape, will need some concrete ceiling crack and plastering, some erosion of fine material on concrete faces. Solberg Dam, good shape, will need some concrete maintenance that will be done this summer as well. Airport, filling holes that are being dug under the perimeter fence. Checking the repairing fences for damage and places where posts are heaving up from frost. Replacing burnt out bulbs on runway and taxiway edge lights. Some need wire spades replaced. Are there any questions for any of those reports?
Hi,
Just a-
Larry.
I have one quick one.
Yes.
2 days of chainsaw training. Is that everybody has to sit through that for 2 days, or is that over the course of 2 days you do different departments?
Everybody has to sit through it for 2 days, don't they?
Wow,
One's classroom.
that must be pretty
Yeah,
extensive.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
can-
classroom then.
I can speak to that a little bit. So the training is, they normally do the crew in 2 days. So half the crew does it one day, half the crew does it the other day. So the morning is typically the classroom training, and then the afternoon they go out in the field and actually do cutting. So typically it's broke up into 2 days so they can split the staff, so not everybody's in the training if something happens out on the road. So
And we utilize so on Old 13 before the salt shed, that blowdown that we had was it last summer. So there was a bunch of blowdown trees. We worked with the landowner to utilize that. Usually we go out to the parks. So Joe Grappa works with us to give us trees to practice on, but that landowner, that's where we went this time. We also include forestry, buildings and grounds if they want to. We allow municipalities to join us. So the trainer comes, it's worth the time. We have to do it.
Anything else for Mr. Polchek? Yes, Mr. Hastings.
It's not for Larry, it's for all of us. I've heard some concerns about the project happening out here, about the business owners and how it's gonna really affect them being shut down for a few weeks. Is there any way that we could somehow find financing, speak with Forward Bank for minimal interest loans to help them through that? It's a thought.
I guess it's something to look into possibly. It's a good thought.
Yeah.
I don't know how
The
to,
only way they'll be able
proceed
to
on
get
that,
into
but-
those businesses is through the back doors, which will probably eliminate a huge percentage of their revenue.
Anybody else for? Ms. Drobnik?
Hi, I'm still here.
Move your chair up a little
You
bit,
gotta
Michelle.
lift your hand up higher.
No, I need
Yeah,
to
come
touch
on,
the
come on.
ground.
Yeah.
Gotta stay grounded.
Get some phone books.
Something. What about the building out there with the water damage? Has any updates on that?
Yeah, so we did talk about it. We are, I wouldn't say putting on a hold, but we'll just go through the budget process with that. It was not covered by insurance because we weren't in it within the last
60 days.
Was it 60 days? Yeah, 60 days. So right now, that it was dried out, but nothing was done with it. We'll go through the budget process to decide what we want to do with that building.
Which is we're leaning towards making it a maintenance garage. type
Yeah.
building.
So yeah, looking to put a garage door on the front and the side and gutting it and just using it as storage.
The old terminal building.
Pretty good.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Polachek. Land use and UW extension, Mr. Barkstrom.
Yeah, our regular meeting was canceled. So we're gonna have, our next meeting will be 2 days from now, this Thursday. And, I will report that the reality fair that was scheduled for the spring will be held, will be scheduled for this fall after school reconvenes.
Thank you. Law enforcement's next up, Mr. Polachek.
We haven't had a meeting since our last county board meeting, but we are a few people short. We have ordered Dodge Durango squad cars this year versus Ford. Dodge came in cheaper. And we are going to have the Delta 8 discussion at our next meeting. Nick, do you have anything to add to that?
Just a comment that those squads, they were already budgeted.
Yes.
Yeah, we budget
Durango
3 a year.
Trucks or SUV, back to SUVs?
SUVs.
Back to SUVs. Okay. I wasn't sure because we have 3 trucks that sat in the parking lot for
We finally got all the
long
pieces.
time.
Yeah.
So
That's the biggest part, is building them out. So we can order them. Usually the order takes half a year to a year. And then it comes down to like one harness for an electrical thing that they just sit there until you're ready, or we can get that harness. So the 3 trucks are on the road. We have 2 Durangos, I think, and a pickup. And we have 3 additional vehicles ordered that we've budgeted for. We'll have to get all new equipment in them that we budgeted for. But the other problem we're having is they change the interior exterior so often on these that we no longer can recycle the interior. So the barrier between the person you have in the back seat and the front seat, that's custom for the model year. And so every time they do a generation change or something changed in a vehicle, all that equipment, the $10,000 worth of equipment, it doesn't go into the next one. So that's where we're trying to now look at alternatives on, can we keep these vehicles longer and have more on rotation, and how that's going to work out. Because either way, you're burning them up in 3 years and the equipment's still good. So how can we work with that?
It's not a problem getting equipment, that's standalone to law enforcement. I was talking with the highway commissioner, and a new triaxle truck, from the time you order it to build date, is now out 480 days.
Jeez.
So our new trucks we order now will be coming in 2027.
We'll drive nice.
I will.
Ms. Hodak, do you have something?
Thank you.
Not, okay. I was for law enforcement. I just wanted to mention, going back to Health and Human Services, and it wasn't on the minutes, but so many times we think of Health and Human Services that we're giving vaccinations and we're working with colds and all that. But I just wanted to put a little plug in that we also do work with the schools. Jojo Baratka and Morgan Ait were invited to come to their after-school program, where they worked with the kids and giving them information on stranger danger and things to watch for. So it's just just that I want to make sure that you know that we are out there not only for your health, but for your mental and for our community.
Thank you. Anything further for law enforcement?
What did you say, Larry? Oh, yeah, I'm out there for mental.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Palachek. We'll convene out of the committee of the whole. Mr. Trimmer?
Just one communication for the highway project. We were contacted by Ross's bait shop and then the city. They requested the use of our parking lot after hours on weekends, so I did okay that. He's been advertising Ross's bait shop and letting everybody know that it's available after hours and on weekends to park there. Technically, it's available to park all the time. It's just, it'll be full on Monday through Friday. So we did work with some of the business owners and the city to let them know and to advertise that that parking lot's available for those who are going downtown.
Anybody else have any quick comments? Mr. Palachek?
We're kind of going to have to put up with the project here. We've been waiting patiently for it since 2018 when it was first scheduled. So we'll get through it and it'll be a lot better in the end.
Mr. Bracca?
Just one last thing on the project, just to let people know that it is a state DOT let project. So the contractor is responsible for anything that happens on that highway during the project. So if you have concerns, obviously the highway commissioner is a good resource, but understand that he doesn't have any authority over that road while it's under construction. So just a heads up.
Just watch out for the state wildflower.
Yeah, don't touch it. The sidewalks that are going, it's a state project. The city is is working on the project for the sidewalks. There is a public hearing coming up. I have it on my calendar where they're going to discuss what they're going to do with the sidewalks again. It's been 3 years now, 4 years that we've been working on that. So part of the project is replacing the sidewalks from Birchland to just past Ross's, whatever that road is. So that section, the city has determined that the sidewalks need to be updated. They're looking at one contractor bidding it out. Once that bid happens, we'll be responsible for the cost of 5 feet wide in front of our facility of the sidewalk. So if it was a 6 foot wide sidewalk, we'd be responsible for 5 feet of it. The city would be responsible for the other foot. But right now that would include this whole city block for the county. I have requested with the city, because we're a full city block, can we utilize our resources, which is our highway department, to do it, to try to alleviate the cost. They're working through that right now because they want it to be consistent and one provider, and they don't want each business to be like, I want to do my own sidewalk, because then it just gets out of hand.
Mr. Hastings?
Have you ever been to Duluth with their city sidewalks? They put a product in their concrete that makes them shimmer like glittery. It'd be cool if you did that. It's just it's a powder. You trowel it right into the top. It's real simple to apply.
Yeah, that'd be a city issue.
No, it's
Yeah.
Anybody else?
yeah.
Okay. Date of our next meeting, June 17th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Back in the county boardroom. I hereby declare this meeting adjourned.